The night everything changed. The first thing she noticed was the silence. Not the expensive silence of a luxury apartment, where everything was carefully arranged and nobody wanted to make a mistake. This was the silence of two people who had once known each other's every breath. Maya stood beside the dining table, staring at the man she had loved for almost 8 years. Daniel sat across from her in a perfectly tailored shirt, a gold watch resting against his wrist. Between them was a small envelope. He had placed it on the table without looking at her. Maya slowly opened it. Inside was a bank transfer receipt, and beside it was a short note. "This is enough for you to start over. Please don't contact me again." She read it twice, then a third time. Her fingers began to tremble. "Daniel," she whispered, "after everything." He finally looked up. His face was different, not physically, but the warmth was gone. "I've changed, Maya." She stared at him. "No," she said quietly. "You became rich." Daniel looked away. And in that moment, Maya realized something painful. The man she had stood beside when he had nothing had finally become the man who believed she was worth leaving behind. But nobody knew what had happened between those two people. And nobody knew that the same woman being dismissed in that beautiful apartment had once been the reason Daniel survived his darkest years. Before the money, 8 years earlier, Daniel had one pair of decent shoes. Even those had a crack near the sole. He worked wherever he could find work. Some days he carried boxes at a warehouse. Other days he repaired phones from a tiny wooden table outside a market. He wasn't lazy. He simply never seemed to get ahead. Maya knew that. She had met him during one of the worst seasons of his life. Daniel had just lost his job. His rent was overdue. His phone had been disconnected. And he had begun avoiding people because he was tired of explaining why he couldn't afford anything. But Maya didn't leave. She didn't ask him to take her to expensive restaurants. They ate simple food. They walked instead of taking taxis. Sometimes they sat outside Daniel's room in the evening because the room became unbearably hot. One night, Daniel counted the money in his palm. It wasn't enough to buy dinner. He laughed bitterly. "I don't understand how my life got here." Maya sat beside him. "You'll get through it. You don't know that. I know you." Daniel looked at her. She smiled. "And I'll still know you when things get better." He didn't believe her. At that time, neither of them knew how much those words would matter. The years nobody saw. Maya wasn't wealthy either. She worked during the day and used whatever was left after paying her own expenses to help Daniel whenever she could. But she never made him feel like a burden. If Daniel had enough money for food, they ate together. If he didn't, she quietly found a way. There were nights when she returned home exhausted, removed her shoes, and counted the little money remaining in her purse. Sometimes she wondered how long they could keep living like that. But every time Daniel talked about his dreams, something inside her became hopeful again. He wanted to build a technology company. Not because he wanted luxury. He wanted freedom. He wanted to create something that would give other people the opportunities he never had. So Maya encouraged him. She listened to his ideas. She helped him test his first business plan. When his first small project failed, she stayed. When another failed, she stayed again. And when Daniel finally started getting small contracts, she celebrated as though he had already become a millionaire. But there was one thing Daniel never knew. Maya had secretly used most of her savings to keep his first serious business alive. She never told him. She didn't want gratitude. She wanted him to succeed. The breakthrough. Then, Almost 6 years into their relationship, everything changed. A company discovered Daniel's technology. The contract was larger than anything he had ever handled. Then came another, and another. The small business that once operated from Daniel's cramped room became a real company. Employees arrived. Officers followed, then investors, and eventually, money began arriving faster than Daniel could spend it. For the first time in his life, he walked into a store and didn't look at the price before buying something. He moved into a beautiful apartment. He bought a car. He started wearing expensive watches. And people who had ignored him for years suddenly wanted to know him. Maya was happy, at least at first. She thought the difficult chapter of their lives had finally ended. She was wrong, because poverty had never been the thing holding Daniel and Maya together. Love had, and now money was about to test whether that love was real. The woman he was becoming. Daniel began coming home later. Then he stopped explaining where he had been. He started attending meetings Maya knew nothing about. People around him began calling her Daniel's girlfriend instead of Maya. Small things changed first. He complained about her clothes. He criticized the way she spoke. He told her she needed to upgrade herself. One evening, Maya placed dinner on the table. Daniel barely looked at it. "You still cook like this?" She paused. "What is wrong with it?" "Nothing." "Then why did you say it like that?" Daniel sighed. "I'm just saying things are different now." Maya looked at him for several seconds. "I know." "No, Maya, you don't." Those words stayed with her, because suddenly Daniel wasn't talking about money. He was talking about identity. He had started believing that the life they once shared was beneath him, the secret he hid. Maya eventually discovered something she never expected. Daniel had begun preparing to leave her. Not for another woman. Not exactly. He simply wanted a completely different life. A life where nobody remembered the struggling man he used to be. And Maya was living proof that he had once been that man. She had known him before the cars, before the expensive clothes, before people respected him, before the money. She knew the nights he couldn't sleep. She knew the embarrassment. She knew the failures. And Daniel had begun to hate being reminded of that version of himself. One evening, Maya found a folder on his desk. Inside were documents concerning an apartment, financial accounts, and plans to move abroad. She closed the folder. She didn't confront him immediately. Instead, she waited. She wanted to hear the truth from his mouth. The betrayal. A week later, Daniel finally told her, "I think we should end this." Maya sat completely still. "For how long have you been thinking that?" Daniel looked uncomfortable. "A while." "A while?" "Things have changed." She swallowed. "I've changed too." "I know." "No, Daniel." Her voice cracked. "I changed with you." The room became silent. She looked at him. "I was there when you couldn't pay your rent. I was there when your business failed. I was there when nobody believed in you." Daniel looked down. "I appreciate that." Maya almost laughed. "Appreciate?" She wiped a tear from her cheek. "I didn't love you because I thought you would become rich." Daniel said nothing. "I loved you because of who you were." And then she asked the question that finally exposed everything. "Do you still know who you are?" Daniel couldn't answer. The fall. Maya left that night with one small suitcase. She didn't take the expensive things Daniel had bought for her. She didn't take the jewelry. She didn't ask for half his money. She only took the clothes she had arrived with. And as she walked toward the door, Daniel said something she never forgot. "You'll be fine. I'll make sure you have enough money." Maya turned around. For the first time, she looked directly into his eyes. "I never needed your money." Then she walked away. But what Daniel didn't know was that the decision he had made would soon threaten everything he had built. The truth he never knew. Months passed. Maya rebuilt her life quietly. She returned to work. She rented a small apartment. She never told anyone the full story. Meanwhile, Daniel's company began struggling. An important investor discovered that one of the company's most valuable early contracts had depended on intellectual work Maya had helped develop during the company's first years. The issue became serious. Daniel's lawyers asked him where the original records were. Daniel didn't know. Then someone found them. Maya had kept copies, not because she wanted revenge. She had kept them because Daniel had once asked her to protect the business records while he was trying to keep the company alive. Now those records could either save the company or destroy it. Daniel had one choice. He could accuse Maya of trying to take advantage of him, or he could finally tell the truth. The truth comes out. When Maya arrived at the meeting, she expected another legal argument. Instead, Daniel was already there. He looked exhausted. The expensive clothes were still there. The watch was still on his wrist. But the confidence was gone. He looked at Maya. "I owe you an apology." She said nothing. Daniel continued. "You saved this company before it was a company." Maya lowered her eyes. "I know. I treated you like you were part of the life I needed to escape." Her eyes filled with tears. "And I was." Daniel shook his head. "No." His voice broke. "You were the person who stood beside me while I became someone." The room went quiet. For the first time since becoming wealthy, Daniel wasn't defending himself. He was admitting the truth. Maya had never been the weight holding him down. She had been part of the foundation beneath him. The reversal. The documents Maya had preserved proved that she had contributed to the company's early development. But she didn't demand ownership. She didn't demand revenge. She simply asked Daniel to do what was right, and he did. He restored everything that had been unfairly excluded from the records. He publicly acknowledged Maya's contribution. Then he made another decision. He offered her a position in the company, not because she was his former partner, but because she had earned it. Maya refused at first, not because she hated him, because she no longer wanted her future to depend on him. So Daniel accepted her decision. Instead, he gave her the resources to build something of her own. This time, there were no conditions, no strings, no expectation that she would return to him, just accountability, what money could not buy. Daniel eventually understood something money had hidden from him. When he had nothing, he knew exactly who loved him. When he became rich, he became surrounded by people who wanted something from him. And somehow, he had pushed away the one person who wanted nothing except to see him become better. He tried to repair the relationship, but Maya didn't immediately take him back. Forgiveness came first. Trust came much later, and even then it looked different. She didn't return because Daniel had become rich. She returned only after he became humble enough to understand what wealth had almost made him lose. A different life. Years later, Maya had built a successful business of her own. She lived comfortably, not extravagantly. Comfortably. She could walk into a store without worrying about the price. She could help her family. She could sleep peacefully. And Daniel? He was still successful, but he was different. He no longer measured people by their clothes. He no longer felt embarrassed by where he came from. And whenever someone praised him for his success, he remembered the woman who had sat beside him when he couldn't even afford dinner. One evening they sat together again, not in the old apartment, not in the place where they had once struggled, somewhere peaceful. Daniel looked at Maya. "You were right." She smiled. "About what?" "Money didn't change me." Maya waited. "It revealed me." She nodded slowly. "And now?" Daniel looked at her. "Now I know who I want to be." For once, Maya believed him. What money could never give. Sometimes, the people who love us during our hardest years are the same people we take for granted when life finally becomes comfortable. We begin to confuse wealth with worth. We start believing that the people who knew us before success somehow belong to our past. But money can buy a better house. It can buy a better car. It can buy comfort. What it cannot buy is genuine love. And if someone stood beside you when there was nothing to gain, don't wait until you have everything to realize what that person was worth. Because one day, you may discover the most expensive thing you ever lost was something money could never replace. Maya loved Daniel when he had nothing. The real tragedy was that Daniel only understood her value after he had everything.